Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live, as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent. Good evening, Malcontents. My name is David. I am the Malcontent. Today is Thursday, February 25th, 2021. We are coming to you live from just plain old Seattle. We are no longer the Seattle anarchist jurisdiction. Jennifer, how are you doing this evening?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. Why don't we go ahead and jump into the land acknowledgement and let's get this ball rolling.
All right, let's do it. Malcontent News comes to you from Seattle, Washington, the occupied homelands of Coast Salish peoples. We are grateful to live and work as guests on these lands, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. This land acknowledgement is but one small gesture in the ongoing process of working towards repairing and sustaining relations with Coast Salish lands, waters, peoples, and their other than human kin.
Jennifer, thank you so much for that. I am so glad that you brought this into our universe and as part of the show. Joey is watching tonight. Joey, thank you for joining us this evening. And also I saw a shout out from Portland. So thank you, Portland. You can always let us know over in the comments. If you're not from the area, we always love hearing where some of the people are watching from. We know we've had people from New Zealand and the UK, and it's always amazing to find out where our voice is extending to in the world. Jennifer, I guess what we could probably do... Oh, wait a minute. Before we do any of that, just a reminder for everybody to support your mods and admins. The way you can do that is you can spam those hearts, particularly if you're on Facebook, Twitter, or Periscope. By spamming those hearts, you let the mods and admins know you appreciate the hard work that they're doing, and you help mess with the algorithm and get more eyeballs people watching the show. You can also do a like. If you're not feeling the heart, you can do a like. If you're watching on Twitch or YouTube and you're like, I can't do a heart, you could just do a message, just a string of hearts. The mods and admins will see it and they know that you love and appreciate what they're doing. The other thing is that this is the time to share, start a watch party, subscribe, follow, do all of that stuff. Retweet, let the community know about the great program we have and the great news that we're doing. We're doing a little bit of a different show tonight. We have a couple of our regular segments, but we don't have we have prepared stories, but we don't have kind of our prepared video segments maybe like we normally do. We have played the segments that we had with Jem and Sir Keenan Hart and Kendrick Glover. You have an opportunity. If you didn't get to see that, we did a rebroadcast today. We broadcasted it last night. So you can go on any of our channels. You'll find it up there and you'll be able to watch that. The other thing is, follow us on Facebook. We're really looking for the follows because we're close to a magic number over there. So, Jennifer, are we ready to unpack some of these stories?
Let's do it.
All right. I think I'll start with story one because that was a story that I had covered back on Monday. Excuse me, got a little.
I know my nose is running like crazy.
I got a little tickle all of a sudden. Okay. So on Monday, we had talked about 3 different incidents involving car attacks and vehicular homicides with 3 very different legal paths, legal angles that are going on. On Wednesday, we learned disturbing new details about the death of Joseph Bover, 55. South Dakota District Attorney Jason Ravensborg struck Bover with his car. He called the local sheriff after it happened. Tow truck came, and he got a ride home. It's all good. 15 hours later, he claims he goes back to move the deer carcass off of the road. But now that we've learned some details, Jennifer, it's like, well, wait a minute. The sheriff and the tow truck was there and nobody removed the deer carcass off the road then? So there's already a big gaping hole in his story. He claims when he went out there hours later, it's when he found the body of Bover. Bover had been walking to his pickup truck, which is broken down on the side of the road, in an attempt to repair it. South Dakota governor and Republican troglodyte Kristi Noem ordered the police interviews of Ravensborg released. And in the videos, police asked him, "Hey, do you normally wear glasses?" He's like, "No, I don't wear glasses." They're like, "Okay. Were you messing with your phone?" "Oh, no. Wasn't touching with my phone. No. Then they interviewed him a second time. And in the second interview, they're like, "You sure you don't wear glasses?" He's like, "No, I definitely don't wear glasses. I just wear sunglasses." And they go, "Well, that's really something." Because guess what, Jennifer? They found Joseph Bover's glasses in Ravensborg's car. You know how they got there? Because Bover's face went through the windshield so far that his glasses got ejected into the car. But it's okay because the district attorney says, "Well, I thought I hit a deer." The other thing that the police confronted him with is, "We actually pulled your cell phone records and you were checking email and reading news headlines right before you hit this guy." So the long story short is, if this was you, me, or almost anybody else, you would be looking at felony charges. But when you're the district attorney of the state of South Dakota, and it's starting to look like the local sheriff did you a solid on the side of the road, you face 3 misdemeanor charges. Jennifer, it gets even worse. The governor has asked him to resign, and Ravensborg is pulling from a page of Donald Trump going, "Smoke you, I'm not going to do that." And so now he is facing impeachment, ironically, in the state of South Dakota. So that's our update on story number 1. It is just so flipping gross.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting and insane. Yeah, I have no words for that one. How could you? I don't even understand, like, when you have somebody's glasses flying into your car because you've hit them so hard, how you even come up with that excuse on the spot that you hit a deer. Like, how does that even go through your mind rather than calling for help or something? You're just like, "Oh, I hit a deer. I'm going to go back in a little while and see what happened." So,
Apparently, Bover had a flashlight, a very bright flashlight, and when the police came out over 15 hours later, the flashlight was still working, and the police were like, "You didn't see his flashlight out like in the ditch?" And he's like, "No." And part of the things that investigators said they were stymied is that there was a police officer there and a tow truck driver there, and none of them said that they saw the flashlight either. North Dakota police are the ones who investigated this because of the position of the district attorney. And investigators in North Dakota are kind of like, this whole thing just smells like BS, but this is what we've got to work with.
Yeah, Ravensburg sounds like a bit of a sociopath.
Good values from the party of personal accountability going on there.
Yes, absolutely. You know, law and order. Law and order. Okay.
Yeah. You're next. Go for it.
Story 2. Manny Ellis spoke his last words, quote, "I can't breathe, sir," end quote, 357 days ago today. State officials said this week that a decision on whether any Tacoma police officers of Pierce County sheriff deputies will face charges won't come until April. After months of investigation and an over 2,000-page report, State Attorney General Bob Ferguson says they are continuing to interview witnesses and work with, quote, experts in the case. Speaking through their attorney, Manny Ellis's family believes the investigation is complete as it stands and are calling for charges to be filed. Manny Ellis died from a lack of oxygen, from physical restraint, positioning, and the placement of a spit mask over his face. But the report also added, quote, "It is unlikely that this death would have occurred due to physical restraint alone without the contributing conditions." 357 days ago. It does not feel that long ago, does it?
No, it doesn't feel that long ago. I actually would have thought this incident, had we not been tracking it, I would have thought this incident had happened in more towards late March. I knew March was when this had happened. But it's going to be a year basically in about 10 more days. And as you read in the story, officials are saying we're not going to have an answer until April. When it comes to these investigations of police officers, my experience as somebody who has followed these stories is not convictions, but arraignments and charges come fast and punt formation comes slow.
Yeah. And it's just so interesting, how quickly, I don't know. I feel like you look at things sometimes and how quickly charges come down and, issues are looked at, taken care of, resolved, whatever, and then how much longer it takes for issues like these to even have the kind of attention that they even moderately deserve. And I think it's just all goes back to this question of accountability and the ways in which they can either put off or escape accountability through kind of like dragging this out and hoping that people will forget about it and lose the degree of anger that they had over the initial death.
Yeah, and one of the things that's particularly gross about this case is that it was originally positioned very differently by the police. Yeah. And then after George Floyd, citizens started coming forward. There were 2 cell phone videos that came forward, and then there's the video from the Ring camera that is pointing right across at all of this incident. And those 3 videos completely torpedoed Pierce County and Tacoma's version of the story. And one of the things that this investigation that the Washington State Patrol did, that they finished their report on New Year's Eve, concluded that there was another police officer there that, oops, we left that off the report. And there was a Pierce County Sheriff deputy there. And oops, we left that off the report too. And Pierce County was the jurisdiction that was originally investigating this case against the city of Tacoma.
Yeah, omissions don't make you look innocent.
No, they don't.
Like omissions make you look like you're trying to hide something.
Like those glasses on the floorboards.
Yes.
Don't know how those glasses got there.
Me either.
Nope.
Either.
All right, our next story. These are all stories that we've been following, and we said we would give you updates. And so here's another story that we're updating tonight. Tomorrow will mark the anniversary of the first confirmed COVID death in the United States. Now, the death happened on February 26th. It wasn't reported until February 29th. I know somebody out there is going to get pedantic and go, no, it was the 29th. Death happened the 26th, wasn't reported until the 29th. So tonight represents a full year since the first confirmed COVID death. And I know some other people get pedantic and go, well, but they think there were some COVID deaths that happened, but they're not, they're like asterisks, not, so don't get pedantic, please. 508,000 Americans have died in the last year. We are the leading nation in the world by almost any metric on people who have died from COVID. There's another 2,000 are dying every day. The number of new cases, new hospitalizations, and deaths are all in sharp decline. And there's a combination of reasons why that is. The United States is actually getting a lot better at wearing masks. Part of the reason we're getting a lot better at wearing a mask with 508,000 people that have died and counting, more and more people that are like, you can't make me wear a mask, are being directly impacted. Either they've lost a loved one, or they become sickened themselves, or someone in their household has become sickened. And all of a sudden it became a lot more real for them when they were starting to see the impacts in their communities. The next thing is it's estimated about 25% of Americans have had COVID at this point. We're never going to know the full number because the prior administration never got a significant testing program ramped up in this country compared to others. And we have about 13% of Americans who have been vaccinated for COVID.
Yeah.
We also reported on Monday about how the South African variant of COVID was found in Idaho. And one of the things that I had said, if it's in Idaho, it's in Eastern Washington. And if it's in Eastern Washington, it's almost assuredly in King County, and it's just a matter of time before we find out. Wow, I was like prophetic with those words because 12 hours later, we found out that the South African variant of COVID is in King County. But wait, there's more. The test was done on January 29th. So we're finding out almost a month later that the South African variant is in King County, and they can't find the person. Jennifer, they can't find the person, so they don't know who they came in contact with. They don't know if they traveled outside of the country or not, and they don't know who they were in contact with otherwise. So congratulations, King County. We have community spread of the South African variant, which the Pfizer is resistant to the Pfizer vaccine. It is resistant to treatment. And it targets younger adults and makes them sicker. And it's also about 50 to 70% more contagious on a disease that is already infinitely more contagious than the flu, because that's why we don't have any flu right now. Anyway, that's the good news that we have on the COVID front. Are we making progress? We are making progress. Are we still screwing this up as a society? We are still so screwing this up as a society.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the big worry, I think, about the South African virus, too, is the push to reopen schools. And also, the UW campus has been notoriously bad about having students gathering in unsafe ways, parties. We talked last week about how, a lot of the students that attended a party on Greek Road during the snow are now being forced to quarantine. And then also not allowed to go to the in-person classes that are being held on campus that they might have attended. So yeah, I don't know. This is not boding well. All right. On to story 4.
Yeah.
Let's do it. We've been following the 2, no 4, no 5, wait, 6 officers from the Seattle Police Department who were in Washington, D.C. for the Overthrow the Government Day. Today, through Freedom of Information requests, we were going to learn the names of 4 of them and get confirmation on 2 others. A judge today put the smackdown on that idea until March 10th, keeping the names of those sworn to protect and serve the people out of sight from the people. On March 10th, the matter will be decided, and for now, legal watchers consider this a temporary victory, and we'll keep following the story. And I actually added this into the Insurrection update, so remind one of us, whoever gets it, not to read it. But yeah, they're pushing to keep this information locked down permanently.
Yeah, again, what are they hiding?
Yeah, these are public servants.
We don't want to put their names out there because we don't want them getting hate mail and stuff. That was like one of the excuses. By the way, Mike Solon got to walk on doxing me back on September 7th. The case is closed with no action. So nice double standard, OPA and courts. Yeah. Just putting it out there. Calling it as I see it. All right, story number 5. You remember Eric Whitehead? He was the Seattle police officer who refused to wear a mask at an area hospital. They had to get a nursing supervisor at one point to get him to comply. Do you remember this guy? Remember how the Seattle Police Department made a quick statement the same weekend that it happened that there would be an investigation and that OPA opened up a case? You remember how they said this investigation would go quick and that we would know about a decision quickly? Remember how the Seattle police told us that the video from the security cameras that they had from within the hospital actually makes the incident look a lot worse than what the nurse articulated about the incident? You remember all that? That was 40 days ago. 40. Jennifer, they have a strange definition of a fast investigation down at OPA and with Mr. Meyerberg down there.
That is insane that it's been 40 days since we reported on it. So it's probably like 35 since we reported on it, because we reported on it shortly after it happened. And that there's still been no, repercussions, deepening investigation, consequences for, his actions. These guys, men and women, people who are sworn to protect and serve, that are consistently going out and not receiving any consequences for their actions, is only going to embolden them to continue this kind of behavior. Yep.
I wish we had some good. We do have good news, by the way, Malcontents. This is not an hour bitch session tonight. We do have some good news and fun stories.
We do. Yes. All right. So story 6. This is not good news or a fun story, David. All right. It's been 117 days since Black Coffee Northwest was firebombed. About a month since the video of the attack was released, and still nothing. Now, if King County Sheriff investigators were as aggressive on this case as a broken window at Starbucks, we might actually be somewhere.
Yeah, we actually might have some progress on this one. 117 days. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
I mean, that basically sums it up. All right. This is the last story that we're updating. Remember, we told you we're going to be keeping tabs on Joe Biden, the Biden administration, and their promise to do 100 million vaccinations. Then he moved the goalposts when people said that the goalposts where that was too easy. So we did move it to 150 million in the first 100 days. And we said on day one when he announced this, we were on the air that same day he announced it, that we were going to hold his feet to the fire on that. Well, we have an update. We're 42 days in. They have done 50 million doses in 42 days. So if you do the math, for 100 million, the original goal, they're going to do it with time to spare at the current pace. At the 150 million goal, they're falling behind. However, not making excuses, the massive weather event that we had in the center part of the country in some of our most populated states did slow some of the numbers down last week. The nation also lost tens of thousands of doses that spoiled when Texas regulators decided that we don't have to winterize the grid, even while we were told to do it all the way back in 2011, and the power system shit the bed across the state. Now, it isn't all good news, although a lot of it is good news. For example, there's stories like out in Los Angeles, where Los Angeles were given codes, especially people that lived in lower income and vulnerable neighborhoods. They were given special code that they could go to a special vaccination site just for them. Well, guess what happened? The codes leaked out to the elite and the wealthy of Los Angeles, who are now going with for the codes that were meant for the people that clean their houses, cook their meals, clean their pools, and manicure their yards. Yeah. So they're actually taking the shots from the people that work for them because they got the codes. Do better, America. I thought we were better than this.
Yay, capitalism.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go ahead and do a little pause for the cause, and the mood's going to get a little better, I promise. Hi, Malcontents. I'm David, the Malcontent, and I'd like to talk to you for a moment about supporting independent media. When you support us, you help us bring the before, during, and after. You help us defend the First Amendment. You help us amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices, and you help us hold leaderships at a local, state, and federal level accountable. None of this would be possible without support by viewers just like you. When you become a patron for as little as $5 a month, you help buy technology, safety equipment, and help cover travel expenses so that we can continue to bring you news that you trust. If you can't become a patron, you can do a one-time donation on Venmo, and your dollars will go to the exact same causes. With your continued support, we can continue to amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices while showing the truth on what is happening in the world around us. Once again, thank you. It's that time again. It's time for Malcontented Minutes. If you haven't seen this before, let me explain to you what it is. But before we do that, this is the time to go ahead and lighten the mood. Go ahead and spam those hearts. Spam those hearts if you're watching us on Twitter, Periscope, or Facebook. Let the mods and admins know you really appreciate the work that they are doing. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, you just do like a long line of hearts or something, or a nice little message that says, I love you, mods. I love you so much. You add me in. Hello. So what Malcontented Minutes is that Jennifer and I have 10 stories. We have 2 minutes-ish each story. So we usually go about 25 minutes in this segment. And I tell a story, 60 seconds. Jennifer gets 60 seconds to unpack it. And then vice versa. We do that through the 10. And to answer some of the questions I saw in the comments, yes, we have cute animal videos tonight. We have more than one cute animal video tonight. We also have a little twist to one of the cute animal videos. I did not share with Jennifer what I did with one of her videos tonight, but she's going to find out.
I love the love them.
This is the time for mods and admins to drop the link to the poll. If you haven't done this before, you're like, poll? What does he mean a poll? Yes, there's a poll. You can go to the website and you can vote for your favorite story. And then that story is the story that Jennifer and I will unpack. We'll talk a little bit more about it at the end of the show. If you happen to pick one of the cute animal videos, we're just going to play the cute animal video for a second time. It's really that simple. So, Jennifer, are we ready to do this?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to do it. Story number 1. Here we go. Several Seattle area businesses have received homophobic postcards in the mail. While this intolerance is sadly not new in Seattle, there's a twist. The sender is putting as the return address Mindy Jennings. Mindy is the husband of Ken Jennings, and Ken Jennings is best known for his Mad Jeopardy skills and more recently for his excessively fat thumbs on Twitter. Businesses have received the postcards include Cupcake Royal, Biscuit Bitch, and Phoenix Comets. It's likely other businesses have received the postcards, but have probably just thrown them out without bringing this up either to officials or to people in the media. We're not going to show the postcards that are there. There's pictures. You could do a search. It'll come up like that. Because quite frankly, if we showed them, we would probably get knocked off the air and get a strike on all of our accounts. The cover on them says, end tree, figure it out. Seattle has a lot of it's, figure it out. Together, we could change that. Just gross. It's just friggin' gross.
I don't know how many times people need to be told that it's none of their business what other people do in their beds. Like, who gives, excuse my language, a flying fuck? And why do you have to be such an asshole about it?
This is written. This is written.
I feel like, yeah, the homophobia and the transphobia has been around in Seattle for a while, but I feel like there's been an intensification of it recently. And I've seen it on social media and in other spaces, and it's extremely troubling because all it does is just show how wed we are as a society to these like really binary, rigid gender roles and stereotypes. And it's just so problematic because, for one thing, it doesn't allow for any kind of advancement beyond the status quo, which is like white men of a particular class and status. And it really just further oppresses not only people who don't identify by those gender norms, but also, people of color, women. It's just, yeah, gross.
I think that's the word, gross. Jennifer will go ahead and start the timer.
All right. So, on the topic of transphobia, MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, posted an anti-transgender sign across the hall from a lawmaker with a transgender child because, quite frankly, I think she is the devil from Georgia. So she's facing sharp criticism after she posted an anti-transgender sign outside of her office directly across the hall from this lawmaker with a transgender child. This move comes as Greene is expected to pass the Equality Act, a bill that would ban discrimination against the LGBTQ plus community. And so this is kind of like, been described as disgusting, immoral, and evil. So pretty much every quality that she possesses. And it just, I don't know. That evening, Greene retweeted Newman's post and added a video of her hanging a sign that reads, quote, "There are..."
Well, you did it.
She nailed it. It's good. She is just...
She's a horrible human being.
Georgia, what the hell? Like, really? Are you're proud of this? And I want to know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're really letting the QAnon followers down? How come you haven't found the blood drinkers yet? Right? Weren't you said you were going to find the blood drinkers? Where are the blood drinkers? All right.
It's a real, weird thing to have somebody say, trust the science, who basically argued that there was, Jewish space labor. So...
And we can unpack that more, Malcontents, if that's the story you want us to unpack, because we could definitely be savage to the MTG. All right, story number 3. Sergeant Keith Duroy of the Oklahoma City Police Department has been charged with first and second degree manslaughter for the on-duty shooting of a black man in the back. On December 11th, 2020, OKC police were called about an unhomed man having a mental health crisis. Yes, because, the police are so well equipped for this. 60-year-old Benny Edwards. Say his name. Duroy claims Edwards pulled out a folding knife and told Duroy to leave. Duroy asked for backup. He asked for an officer with a taser. Edwards was tased and pepper sprayed to no effect, according to the police, and he pointed the knife at officers. Edwards then started to run away. That's when Duroy dropped the taser, pulled out a service weapon, and shot him in the middle of the back. The district attorney determined Edwards posed no threat to any officers or anybody else, and the shooting was not justified. It's hard to imagine that Oklahoma City is more enlightened than Seattle when it comes to a police shooting of a mentally disturbed man with a knife. But there you go, Seattle. Jennifer, you got 60 seconds to unpack it.
Do I really even need to say anything? I mean, the ongoing occurrences of stories of police stories about shootings not adding up is so alarming that people that can kind of look past it or just ignore it or whatever, that is a really specific kind of fucking privilege that you need to check. But also, it just speaks to the ways in which we really need to start thinking more seriously about how we handle people in mental health crises. Because we're in a pandemic. Mental health is, we've already talked about the statistics for mental health and all kinds of other things, suicide and other issues related to the pandemic and confinement and all these other things. And so, yeah, I don't know. Super frustrated by all this shit right now.
It is. All right. Story number 4.
Oh, this must be a bad day for SPD because there was a court ruling that basically said they can't arrest for drug possession after a high court in the state struck down a law. So the Washington Supreme Court has struck down part of the state's felony drug possession law because it doesn't require prosecutors to prove that someone knowingly or intentionally possessed drugs. So as Como reports, Como, who published this god-awful article this morning that made me way too angry after I woke up, that the ruling has enormous ramifications for law enforcement agencies across the state, as evidenced by a decision by the Seattle Police Department to immediately halt making arrests for suspected simple drug possession offense. The Seattle Police Department put out a statement that said, quote, the Seattle Police Department will follow the law and has already issued the directive effective immediately. And this was to Como, and they continue that said, quote, this morning the Washington State Supreme Court ruled RCW 69.54.4013 unconstitutional. RCW 69.50.4013, also known to as simple drug possession, is no longer an arrestable offense. It also cannot be used as a legal basis to seize an individual. Now let's see if they abide by that ruling.
So here's my opinions and views on this. Brandy Cruz this morning, this was like the second or third thing that I woke up to read. And she was totally in dog whistle and clutching her pearls mode. And as somebody who is a journalist, I have to admit, I feel icky picking on Brandy, but she's like our little Sean Hannity here in Seattle. Anyway, later on today, she had a former U.S. District Attorney on a Zoom meeting, and it was so entertaining to watch, Jennifer, because he does explain the constitutionality of everything, and you could just kind of see, like, the color draining out of her as, the dog whistly conversation she wanted to have wasn't going to happen, because in the view of this former U.S. District Attorney at the federal level, the law was unconstitutional as written.
It must be nice to watch her squirm. I can't handle watching her in any capacity. It's hard enough to read anything she posts on Facebook, let alone watch her spew venom on the TV screen. So kudos to you for handling that.
All right, we're going to move on to story number 5. Jennifer, story number 5 has everything. It has Florida man, it has New Jersey, and it has less lethal weapons. We can count on Florida to lighten the mood. A Florida man is being interviewed by police tonight, and security screening at Fort Myers Airport is being called into question. United Flight 1061 was getting ready to take off to fly to Newark, New Jersey, when an unnamed man accidentally discharged a canister of pepper spray in the cabin. Things got spicy as passengers started to cough and gag, requiring the plane to taxi back to the airport. Eyewitness Joseph Grande, this just has everything in this story, on the flight admits he was maskless, even though it's federal law finable up to $30,000 to wear a mask. And by his own admission, as he started to choke because the pepper spray went off right next to him, he grabbed his mask and put it on when he realized the situation. The plane was cleaned. The flight left later, but absent some passengers who refused to get back on the plane. And oh, by the way, from personal experience, when you wear a good N95 mask, it actually works really well against pepper spray. I'm just saying. Jennifer, there you go. We're starting to lighten the mood. Jersey, Florida, pepper spray, police. Mask people who don't want to wear masks. It's got everything. Go.
I'm sorry, is his last name really Grande?
It is Grande.
Okay.
Grande.
Like Ariana Grande. I have
Yeah.
to need water, I'm sorry. So how do you accidentally discharge pepper spray for one thing? That's what I want to know. Like this dude's, why are you carrying pepper spray onto a plane in a capacity where you could accidentally discharge it? You're maskless.
How did it get through security?
Yeah, you're from Florida. Your last name is Grande. Like, I mean, all of this should have been like huge red flags prior to him even getting on the plane. That's all I
We're
got.
not sure if he's from Florida. He could be from Jersey. He could be from Jersey, right? He could be a Jersey boy. He could be Jersey. I got this because you know the mean streets of Jersey.
Well, I got excited when you said Florida. I'm sorry. Most interesting things happen in Florida.
All right, story number 6.
Oh, I love this story. And I believe it was Rashi who actually posted it in our chat and had questions about it. But it's an Alaska woman gets attacked by a bear while using the outhouse. So an Alaska woman had a, quote, square of a lifetime when using an outhouse in the backcountry, and she was attacked by a bear from below. Have nightmares, people. So she says, quote, I got out there and sat down on the toilet and immediately something bit my butt right as I sat down. Her name is Shannon Stevens. And she said, I jumped up and I screamed when it happened. So apparently the area they're in has had issues with bears coming into, they were actually out like snowmobiling or something like that. So they weren't in a heavily populated area, but apparently the area has had an increase of bears coming into places where there's more people. So she said it was, quote, bleeding, but not super bad. And they expect that the bear was using the outhouse as a den because it's probably, quote, not that bad of a little den in the winter.
Okay, I get to unpack this. I guess she doesn't have to worry about hemorrhoids, number 1. Puts whole new meaning to the term eat my ass, number 2.
Oh, God. Great, we're going to end up on Pornhub now. Thanks, David. Way to go.
But Yogi, Mr. Ranger isn't gonna like it. Because she wasn't badly hurt, so this makes this comical, right? I mean, of course, if she had been ripped in half by a bear, we would not be laughing about this. We would be horrified. How would you feel? You're asleep, you're comfortable. Next thing you know, somebody's taking a dump on your head. It's like life, bears. It's just like real life. All right, moving on. Story number 7. We have an update on the Elijah McClain story. First, the candlelight vigil is happening tonight. It's happening right now for McClain because it would be his birthday today. Well, it is his birthday. If he was alive, he would be celebrating it. We had learned on Monday that the police had no cause to stop him. He literally died for no reason. We also learned earlier or late last year, 3 officers were fired from the Aurora Police Department for recreating the scene of McClain being choked out by a police officer and taking pictures of it as a joke. Aurora City Manager Jim Twombly, Police Chief Vanessa Wilson, and Aurora Fire Rescue Chief Fernando Gray held a news conference on Tuesday morning. City Manager Twombly said an independent monitor could be the best solution moving forward to increase oversight over the department and regain the trust of residents. The devil is always in the details, and hopefully they'll do a better job than Seattle OPA does. Jennifer, you get 60 seconds to unpack that.
This is just such a freaking awful story. The fact that they went and recreate, I can't even. But it's interesting to me that people always kind of like portray now Colorado is more like progressive. When they forget like back in the 60s and 70s, it was like very much, full of white supremacists and the KKK. So the fact that, people assume that it's gone through that much progress in just a few decades is kind of problematic. But yeah, this is a terribly tragic story, and yeah, I got nothing, David. I got nothing. It's sad.
It
Entirely sad.
is. It's a very, very sad story. Hey, everybody, look who's on the show. It's Yoda the Wonder Pug.
Hi, Yoda.
Yoda demanded to come onto the show, so here he is. All right, Jennifer, you go on to story number 8, I believe.
All right. So here we go. Chuck Hoskin Jr., who is the current principal chief of the Cherokee Nation, is asking Jeep to do away with the name of their Cherokee vehicle. And this has just occurred recently, but it's part of the larger movement to get away from using Native names and symbols as mascots or as a way in which to market things. But what's really problematic is the car maker that owns Jeep, Stellantis, says this, quote, "Our vehicle names have been carefully chosen and nurtured over the years to honor and celebrate Native American people for their nobility, prowess, and pride." There's one big fucking problem with that. All it does is perpetuate this called noble savage trope that has been so problematic for Native peoples over the course of the last couple of centuries. But it also does this really troubling thing where it kind of erases Native people from, contemporary, like this contemporary moment, what they call modernity. So that, whole argument doesn't really hold water for me. So I think what's really going on here is we're seeing, as Susan Harjo, who's a scholar who's been at the center of efforts to persuade teams, schools, and colleges to drop Native American names and mascots, says Jeep's explanation for its use of the Cherokee name that it was honoring the tribe was just an excuse. She says, quote, "Of course, it's not an honor." So we'll see what happens with this. But, this just goes back to this notion. These are, independent, sovereign nations. They have a right to determine and weigh in on how their name is used. So we'll see what happens.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. You and I had a lengthy conversation, a virtual conversation about this story.
Yes.
And we had debated on whether we would go deeper on this and decided we would just do a Malcontented minute on this because it's not in the local area. One of the things that is interesting, I did have to step out for a minute, Jennifer. So if you brought this up, apologies to the audience. In 2013, when they brought the Cherokee name back, the tribe, the First Nation, was asked what their view on it was, and they expressed ambivalence in the interest of time. I know that if I'm going to kind of try to push the poll a little, I know that if our audience picks this one, you and I have a lot to unpack on this one.
Yes, we do.
All right, we're going to move on now. And yes, Yoda the Wonder Pug is here. We're going to move on to story number 9. And story number 9 is real simple. Oh, wait a minute. Not story 8, story 9. There we go, story 9. Everybody enjoy Finnegan the Fox getting a cupcake.
Hi, Finn.
Oh.
This is Finnegan Fox. You gonna get a toy donation? Somebody sent you a cupcake. Oh my goodness. You're a good boy. He's a good boy. Get a cupcake. Mr. Good Foxy. Mr. Good boy. Oh my gosh. Are you so excited about your cupcake? Oh my goodness. You're so welcome. Hi, Dixie Doo. It's a Dixie. Did you get a cupcake, huh? What's this? Ready? Get it. Get a cupcake. It's a Dixie. Get the cupcake. Oh.
Jennifer, you get 60 seconds to unpack Finnegan. I want a fox. It's just like this, just like, I want a fox. This is, oh my God.
That was adorable. Do you just want me to say that over and over again for the next minute so we kill time? Because I don't really have anything to unpack there other than that was like the cutest thing I've seen all day.
All right. You want to do story 10?
Of course I do, because it's
all right.
All right. So this woman asked her dog Malachi, he's a husky, to come in from the snow. And when asked, he basically told her no. And we actually, like a little human, he says no. And we actually have some video of that.
Okay, for all you people wanting me to bring my dog inside, Malachi, come inside. Come inside. Come on. Come inside. I can get in trouble for animal cruelty if you do not come inside. Come on. Malachi, come.
I had some fun with your video, Jennifer.
Yeah, I see that. I see that.
You have a few more seconds if you want them.
No, that was cute, and I just wanted to let people see this cute dog. I was like, no, but I like that she was like, you know, if you don't come inside, they're going to get me for like animal neglect. He's like, no, don't care.
All right, mods and admins, this is the point where you go ahead and drop that link into the poll. You get to vote for your favorite story. If your favorite story happens to be one of our video segments, we'll just go back and we'll play the video again for you if that's what you would like us to do. You have actually not a ton of time to vote on this poll. I think we maybe got about 15 minutes a show, roughly, and we'll then be at the finish line. So go ahead, vote early, vote often. We believe that we are not going to have any interference from Sidney Powell tonight on this, and we're going to do a little brief pause for the cause. And then we're going to go into our next segment. So start voting, drop the links. Yeah, we're doing an insurrection update and I hit the wrong button. There's an old button on there. This is the time to go ahead and spam those hearts. Spam those hearts. Let those mods and admins know that you appreciate all the hard work that they do and everything that you do. It also lets Yoda the Wonder Pug know that you love him also. And yes, we are doing Insurrection Update tonight. Jennifer, I guess because you started the other one or ended on the other one, I go ahead and start this one.
Okay.
This one. Arrested this past Monday after the FBI raided his Manhattan home, former New York City Police Department officer Tom Webster turned himself into the Hudson Valley FBI office later the same day. He was ID'd by social media post and his distinctive jacket and hairline. Webster was seen gouging out the eyes of a Capitol police officer. He blinded him and swinging a pipe at others to the point that the pipe was bent like a friggin' pretzel when he was done. As of today, Webster has been denied bail. Rightly so. Not because he's a flight risk, but rather because his violent behavior suggests the former police officer is a threat to his community. You think? And Jennifer, here's the thing that I've got to wonder, since he was so good at gouging eyes out, how many eyeballs did he gouge out in the dark alleys of New York City as a police officer?
Yeah, where did he learn to perfect the swinging of a pipe and the gouging of an eye? Protect and serve.
Exactly. Not even Yoda doesn't even like that story.
Oh, I'm sorry, Yoda. All right. This one. I like this one. Richard Machete of Ridley Park, Pennsylvania, is currently under house arrest after his ex-girlfriend turned over a series of texts she received from Machete during the insurrection where he told her, quote, "If you can't see this election was stolen, you're a moron," end quote. In addition to the incriminating disparaging texts, court documents show numerous photos of Machete at the insurrection wearing a Chicago White Sox baseball cap. Machete also sent his former girlfriend a text stating, quote, "This is our country. Do you think we live like kings because no one sacrificed anything? The vote was fraud and Trump won, but they won't audit the votes," end quote.
Gross.
Yep. Yeah.
Yoda's being vocal tonight, Malcontents. If you're hearing the little woofs in the background, that's Yoda providing his editorial input on the situation. Spam those hearts for Yoda. And also, if you're on Twitch, you could use the Yoda emotes. I believe. I know you have to be a certain level, or you have to drop. I can't quite remember how it was set up over there, but I know there's a Yoda emote over there. And I always say I need to learn more about Twitch. Clayton Ray Mullins has been charged with assaulting a Capitol police officer after being identified by his banker on February 4. After the person took note of Mullins' unusual hairstyle. I wish we had a picture of this. Seen in video footage and photos posted on social media using the hashtag Sedition Hunters, Mullins could be seen assaulting a police officer who is only identified in documents as AW, and we don't mean the root beer, wearing a dark jacket, gloves, and light blue jeans and slicked back hair. Because if you're going to be going overthrowing the country, you need to be having that slicked back hair. Shortly after the footage made its way on social media, photos containing Mullins in his signature hairstyle, we got to find pictures of this guy, began trending with the hashtag slickback. Documents state that Mullins in his slick hair grabbed AW by the foot and helped the crowd drag the officer down an entire flight of stairs. Mullins is accused of several federal crimes, including assaulting an officer, obstructing law enforcement, knowingly entering or remaining in any restricted buildings or ground, engaging in physical violence in these restricted spaces, and violent entry of a government building. Jennifer, tell us what he's won.
Probably some time in jail and time without product to slick back his hair. That would be my guess. I don't know. All right. Are we moving on?
We're moving on.
All right.
And also, actually, before this is where you got you're winding up the votes. When we're done with this story, the polls are closed, and we'll find out what the story that we're going to unpack is. Okay, sorry about that, Jennifer.
After I do the Black History Month, shut up. Okay. So in the wake of the insurrection, Capitol Police Chief Yogananda Pittman warns domestic terrorists and members of militia groups want to, quote, kill as many members of Congress as possible, end quote, during President Biden's upcoming address to Congress. Pittman explains, quote, we know that members of the militia groups that were present on January 6th have stated their desires to blow up the Capitol with a direct nexus to the State of the Union address, end quote. Based on the information, Pittman suggests that it is essential that the Capitol Police remain in its enhanced and robust security posture and that any vulnerabilities be addressed. Vulnerabilities. I wonder what they're talking about. Pittman was asked about the need for continued heightened security by the House Appropriations Subcommittee, where she noted that insurrectionists weren't just looking to kill Congress members and police officers, but rather, quote, send a symbolic message to the nation as to who is in charge of the legislative process. So this is not over, folks.
Well, if you're going to attack the Capitol, and if you're going to do it when the State of the Union is going on, you have both houses, House and Senate. You have the entire Supreme Court. You have the President, the Vice President, Secretary of State. You have, by proxy, the Senator Leahy, who is the President pro temp of the Senate and the third in the line of succession. So you have the top 5 people in the line of secession, as well as all other branches of the government, all in the same building, and you will have many of the cabinet secretaries there. This is why they have, since the Cold War, this concept of a designated survivor, one person who is in the cabinet, who is in that line of secession and is in an undisclosed safe location, that if everything goes to crap, then they're going to wake up in the morning and be president of the United States.
Yeah. So scary stuff. This is far from over. People, are optimistic. Yeah, we got rid of Trump, whatever. But, these insurrectionists are still out there plotting to do these terrible things because, one, they don't want change and they're white supremacist, domestic terrorists. But two, also because they feel like they've been wronged and they're too far down whatever QAnon rabbit hole they've bought into this week to see that what they're doing isn't actually like revolution, but, crime.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, you poor thing. So while we are waiting for the poll results, Malcontents, if you've been like, he's a little off tonight, I don't have great news tonight, actually. I know everybody's been a big fan of Yoda, and Yoda's appeared on camera off and on for 4 years, and I have talked about many times about how Yoda is 17 years old. Yoda's really taken a significant turn for the worse this week, as far as his doggy dementia and his mental health. The little kind of barks and stuff he is making right now is not out of cuteness, but out of the fact that he is just completely disoriented, and he's just not a happy little guy. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We're going to the vet tomorrow. I am not saying that is going to be the ultimate decision for Yoda tomorrow. That's probably not how I want to roll with this decision. But I did bring Yoda on tonight purposely because this is a pretty good chance that this will be his last show.
Oh.
So, just whatever energy you can put out in the world for a little furball. But, he's lived a good life. He's over 17. It's well past the average lifespan of a pug. If he could talk, he would have some amazing stories. He didn't come into my life until he was 8 years old. He got a hold of once some gum with sorbitol, and he ate it all up, and he ended up in a trip to the emergency vet, and they did x-rays, and in those x-rays, one of the questions came up is, well, like, how did he get all the shrapnel in his liver? I'm like, what do you mean he has shrapnel in his liver? Because he was adopted. He's a rescue from Seattle Pug Rescue. And they showed me there, and sure enough, he has all this metal fragments that are embedded in his liver, and that have been scarred over. And what's going on with him today has absolutely nothing to do with that. And I had always noticed that Yoda had a scar, which looked like a surgical scar, on his side. Pug coat is very thick, so it's not something that you're readily going to see. So Yoda's got some interesting story there that we're never going to know. But he's not a happy guy, and he hasn't been a happy guy the last couple of days. I didn't really get any sleep last night. I got like maybe 2 hours. And the way he's acting tonight, I don't see any sleep for me. He's uncomfortable, and there just isn't a whole lot that can be done for him to make him more comfortable at this point. And simply medicating him to the point that he's a zombie, that's not benefiting him. That's just benefiting Dr. and Mrs. Malcontent and I. So we'll see what the vets have to say tomorrow about him. But you've been a good friend. And I hope you get to continue to be my good friend, buddy. So, mods, admins, what's the winning story?
Pugs are the best. Mine's snoring away on the couch right now.
Go ahead, you tell them. You want to know the winning story, right?
All right, well, we wait for the winning story. I'm going to go ahead and do our shout out for Black History Month, if that's all right with you, David.
Say again? Sorry.
For Black History Month shout out?
Yeah, do your yeah. We skip Black History Month. Okay. Yes.
Well, actually, I'm shouting out to one of my PhD advisors today. She is an African-American historian at the University of Washington. Her name is Stephanie Smallwood. And she did her undergraduate degree at NYU and then did her PhD at Duke. But she wrote this amazing award-winning book called Saltwater Slavery. And she did some really intensive and just kind of like, what had to be very troubling research to construct what it was like, the lived experiences of slaves, this kind of African diaspora, that came over from Africa and then were forced to live enslaved in what is now the United States. And so she actually got some, dug deep and got some personal accounts. And it's a very moving, very really insightful work about what it was like for enslaved Africans to make that journey and then come and live in a space that was not their home, with people oftentimes they weren't familiar with, even though they came from their own country. She's an amazing historian. She does some really great work. So this is just my shout out to her because she is supportive, wonderful, kind, and generous. The mods have the link to the book, and I hope that you people get a chance to check it out and enjoy it. But she was also on the Contemporary Roots series. She was one of the historical consultants for that. So,
Jennifer, thank you so much for that. And I really appreciate everything you've done for Black History Month. Jennifer and I, we talked back at the start of the month, and we decided that two very pasty white people coming up here to talk about Black history and go, oh, let's do this, just felt icky and gross. And it didn't feel like being good allies for that. So Jennifer has been researching on resources, articles, documentaries, books that not only about Black history, but written by Black authors, created by Black creators. And Jennifer, this is our last installment because the next time we are together, it'll be March 1st, where 2021 is going by so much faster than 2020.
yes.
Other than the first 2 weeks of 2021, which felt like they were 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Jennifer, I am told the Jeep Cherokee story, surprise, surprise, is the winning story. I knew you were excited for that.
Yeah.
Can I go put you back down, or are you going to get all discombobulated?
Field of study is Indigenous history in, North America. So it's my jam.
So, why don't you start, Jennifer? Malcontent, you're going to like this because Jennifer and I are not coming down on the same side of this story.
No, and I think, but we're not too divergent from each other. And I think what's particularly interesting is that we were having this kind of shift, especially in the last couple of decades, about, mascots that either culturally appropriate or claim to represent Native peoples. Cherokee, Jeep has made an enormous amount of money off the Cherokee name. And so I think it's at least something that should be discussed in the context of royalties, because Native peoples historically, because of geographical isolation, because of ongoing oppression and dispossession, up until about the mid-20th century, have been really economically oppressed. And it's not until you see this kind of economic development initiatives that come out, especially when Johnson is president and the war on poverty, where Native people start to get some opportunities economically. You do have some outliers like the Navajo Nation and uranium mining things, but these are things that were not necessarily safe or good for the community. So for these companies to come in, appropriate the Cherokee name, make millions and billions of dollars off it, and for Cherokee peoples to not get anything from that is inherently wrong. But it just goes to the fact that these are independent, sovereign nations, and they, as such, have a right to weigh in on who uses their name and for what purpose. And I think that we really need to take that into consideration. But also it raises interesting questions about the federal recognition process, because the Cherokee are considered an independent sovereign nation because they are federally recognized. You have, for example, the Duwamish Nation, who isn't recognized as a nation because they don't have federal recognition, even though by all rights, they are an actual Native nation. So I think this story raises multiple big and interesting questions. And I know that you have a different perspective, David, on it. And so I will stop rambling and let you carry on.
Yeah. We're not that far apart. The name Cherokee has been around for 45 years. It was definitely a different time when the name was applied on the vehicle. It's been used in different ways. The name was retired. I actually didn't realize that in digging some information up on this story. And Jeep retired the Cherokee name in favor of the Liberty. And then in 2013, and I had mentioned this earlier, the name was revived the Grand Cherokee, and the Grand Cherokee actually was a problematic vehicle at launch and controversial, which is a whole separate from this story. And New York Times asked leadership in the Cherokee Nation at the time what they felt about it, and their feeling on it was ambivalent. Of course, a lot has changed from 2013 to 2021, and we have seen changes like Washington Redskins, the Cleveland Indians. Seahawks changed their logo, I think, right around that time, like in 2012, 2013, where we started to see some shift in there. Some Seahawks fan I know is going to put in the comments over here, like, no, like date, time, etc. My view on this is moving forward, if the parent company for Jeep, and that's the other thing that complicates the story, is Jeep isn't even an American company anymore. It's technically a French company now. And if the parent company of Jeep were to do something in collaboration with the blessing of the Cherokee Nation, similar to what the Seminoles are doing with their name used by the Florida Seminoles, and to your point, Jennifer, they start getting royalties and payment, then I think that this is a fair and equitable solution. Another thing right off the top of my bat that Chrysler could do is, like on the Grand, they could bring back the Liberty name, because obviously at some point, executives at FCA, that was the parent company at the time, decided to put the Cherokee name to pasture. Yeah. So it's really interesting to me, because I don't think that purists of the brand can go, but the name is so important. It's like, well, if the name is so important, why did they retire the name for almost a decade, right? Yeah. But on the flip side, right, if I go to the other side of the argument, I go, they were asked in 2013 when the name was revived, and they said pass. So it's complicated. But at the end of the day, the First Nation should be respected, and the name should either be dropped or they should be getting compensation for the name going forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting. And, if you think about it, like the Cherokee Nation has had several principal chiefs, elected principal chiefs since the early 1970s. And Wilma Killer, who was like the first female principal chief, and she served from 1985 to 1995. She was very outspoken about this notion of mascots and things. But the Cherokee Nation is really interesting because where they're located, they're in Oklahoma. They tend to, some of them actually tend to be fairly conservative leaning. So you never kind of know which direction they're going. But yeah, it's definitely something that, people need to take more seriously. This is not the first time that people from the Cherokee Nation, principal chiefs especially, have spoken out about the use of the Cherokee name or mascots more broadly. So the fact that they were quiet about this at one point when they were asked about it in 2013 isn't necessarily representative of the longer kind of feelings about the use of Native mascots or their name in the Cherokee Nation in the 20th century.
So we had a comment from our New Zealand audience who says that they never used the Liberty name in New Zealand. They continue to use the Cherokee name the whole time there.
And that's interesting to me too, because, there's a huge indigenous population in New Zealand. And, I think we've kind of like shared stories, or maybe reported a little bit on stories about this kind of, that there's still some ongoing, I guess, I hate to call it, like, there's issues with settler colonization in New Zealand, in Australia, and the ways in which the governments and the peoples interact with the indigenous populations there. But also, you talked about it being like the parent company being in France now, but it's really interesting because a lot of like Britain and France and some of these other countries, especially Germany, had a really big obsession with Native peoples in the United States, and oftentimes would come and pay like top dollar for what they consider to be like, Native sacred objects or these other kinds of, and then put them in museums or keep them in their homes. And Germany especially was really, really bad about that. So this obsession with Native peoples and cultural appropriation and all of this other stuff isn't specific to the United States, even though it fundamentally impacts Native peoples living within the United States. Other European countries have become obsessed with Native peoples in the United States too, and what they think is their culture.
Yeah, another thing that was interesting, right? It's to me, this is not like a black and white, no pun intended in that. Like, this is not like a cut and dry issue. It was interesting because I did do a trademark search just for giggles for global vehicle names, and there are only a couple of examples of automakers outside of the United States using the equivalent of First Nations or Indigenous names in their vehicles. And then there were a couple of examples that I felt were a little bit graspy. Like, one of the examples I used was the name Outback. And I'm like, but Outback isn't a First Nations name. That is just, it's a region in, right? It's a region in Australia. It's a very broad region in Australia. And so to me, that's like, that's a little squinty when you do that. You know, Thunderbird was on the list too, and it's like, well, I don't know. You know, Thunderbird is a defunct name, and I don't see Ford ever bringing it back at this point because it's associated to two-seater coupes, and two-seater coupes are essentially dead in the global market. But you know, Thunderbird's another one because it's like, well, where does that fall? And I don't want to conflate any of this, but the name Cherokee and its continued use is starting to get pretty unique. Like, Chevrolet used to have the Cheyenne. They don't make the Cheyenne, and they won't probably ever bring that name back. Not even as a trim level. They have all different names at this point. There were a bunch of other names that came up that also are defunct, including the Pontiac name. Pontiac was named after a chief or a First Nation, or both. I think it's both. And, Pontiac is a defunct brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's very interesting to me how white people in particular get to these names. And I can go on about this for hours, but I know you've got your hands full with Yoda, and we can save this for like a discussion some other time.
Our Just a Kiwi gal in New Zealand is saying there are also the issue of companies that trademark names. Here in New Zealand, there's an Indigenous singer who can't use her own name in Germany because some company has trademarked her name.
Yep.
That's just gross.
It is gross. Absolutely disgusting.
Great comments tonight. I love when, and Malcontents, if you're like, he's seeing the comments a lot more, it's because it's been moved to a different screen and it's right front and center to me, almost front and center. It's still a little off to the left, but I don't have to look down to see it anymore. Jennifer, Yoda's kind of at wit's end, to be candid, and I think, he's squirmy and barky, and I know he's hungry. So, I mean, that's the one thing he's got going for him right now. He still eats like a starving St. Bernard. So I know that he's going to go downstairs and have about 10 minutes of enjoyment while he goes feeds and I know. We're almost done. I know. We're all going to be old one day, Yoda. We're all going to get old one day. Getting old sucks, huh? You go ahead and tell him that. Getting old sucks. There we go. Wait a second.
Boy.
There you go. I'm not going to look at the camera. You can't make me do that. It's not in my union contract. All right, Malcontents. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you have a wonderful evening, and we will do this again on Monday.
We will.
Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with 3 key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live, as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a Malcontent.
You fit the profile. You're the Malcontent.
Nobody wants to hear the nonsensical ravings of a loudmouth malcontent.
He said Malcontent Antifa, fuck you!
You are the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet.
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.